Yeah.
2 years ago, Alabama was fresh off a 44-16 national championship loss to Clemson. People thought the dynasty down in Tuscaloosa was coming to an end. Last year in 2019, Alabama suffered 2 regular season losses and failed to make the college football playoff. Surely, everybody thought, the dynasty was over now. 2020 rolls around, and we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Alabama faces a daunting full SEC schedule without Tua Tagovailoa, without Jerry Jeudy, without Henry Ruggs. There's no way they're going to be able to run the table and win the national title this year, right? The Crimson Tide did what they do best. They dominated. And the Crimson Tide just completed a perfect 13-0 season, a season that many did not think was possible. Nick Saban and Alabama justified all of the odds in 2020 and just won their 6th national championship in the last 12 years. The Tide won 11 SEC games. 11 SEC games, the first team in history to complete such a feat. They won 12 of their 13 games this year by at least 15 points. The lowest point total they were held to was 31, and that was in the playoff semifinal to Notre Dame, who they beat by 17 points. The dynasty, guys, is far from over. And last night, Alabama proved that. Nick Saban and Alabama proved that the dynasty is far from over as long as Nick Saban is still at the helm down in Tuscaloosa. This is unbelievable, guys. What we just witnessed on Monday was not just one amazing performance in a national championship game against a good Ohio State team. Let's not take anything away from the Buckeyes, who we will touch on here in a second. That was a good Ohio State team. But what we witnessed on Monday was not just one solid performance. This was a compilation of amazing performances, a compilation of amazing prep, and a compilation of an amazing season, an unprecedented season for both teams and really every single team across the country. This national title that we just saw on Monday, regardless of who had won, the winner, it was a little bit more special for them. It wasn't just a normal national title. It was a season and a national title that capped off a season filled with so much uncertainty, filled with so much hardship. You look at Alabama and their journey here to this national championship, guys. Again, they played a full SEC schedule. Never in the history of the game has that happened. Never in the history of the game has someone won 11 SEC games. Alabama, we talk how so hard it is for any team, even in a normal year, to run the table and go undefeated. To do so in what is arguably the toughest conference in the country is unbelievable. So Alabama had to deal with that first off. They had to deal with the loss of Jalen Waddle early on in their season. They had to deal with Mac Jones as being their quarterback. Not that that was a bad thing. He got a handful of starts at the end of the 2019 season, but going into this year, many wondered, could he fill the shoes of Tua Tagovailoa? He filled them and maybe then some. Jones being a Heisman finalist, his teammate Devontae Smith winning the Heisman Trophy, a wide receiver winning the Heisman Trophy. They overcame so much hardship, so much uncertainty, so many opt-outs, so many COVID cases among their team. They didn't have their coach at times, and Nick Saban was on the sideline a couple times this year, and yet they still battled through and made it to the national title and dominated in this national championship. Take a look at the game, guys. We could focus so much on how amazing this feat was. Again, the Crimson Tide winning their 6th national championship in the last 12 years. Nick Saban winning his 7th national championship, breaking a tie with Paul Bear Bryant for the most national championships by a head coach in the Poll era. We could talk so much on that, but let's talk about what we watched on Monday night. Alabama had 621 yards of offense against the Buckeyes. They outgained Ohio State by 280 yards. Outgained the Buckeyes by 280 yards. Again, defeating the Buckeyes 52-24, a 28-point national championship victory. Mac Jones, again, the quarterback replacing Tua Tagovailoa, went out there and threw for 464 yards. 464 yards and 5 touchdowns. And, of course, the Heisman Trophy winner Devontae Smith played a huge role in that, setting records left and right. As if he wasn't doing that already this season, he went ahead and added to his historic season, setting records in the College Football Playoff Championship game with 12 receptions, 215 reception yards, and 3 touchdowns. And keep in mind, he left the game early with an injury. As Nick Saban said, heaven knows the numbers he could have put up. Heaven knows what he could have done had he played the entire game, even though Alabama had that game put away, in my opinion, by halftime. 215 yards and 3 touchdowns from the Heisman winner. Shaun Wade, the star cornerback for Ohio State, he got what he asked for. When asked earlier in the week who he wanted to go up against, he goes, I think you know who I want to go up against. Everybody knows who I want. He wanted Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith gave him what he wanted, and he burned him. And everybody said Shaun Wade wasn't going to get burned. He got burned against Clemson, but he wasn't going to get burned against the Heisman winner? Are you kidding me? We knew it was bound to happen. And Devontae Smith showed up, showed out. And Shaun Wade, unfortunately, could not deliver. And I don't mean to dog on Shaun Wade. I don't mean to dog on Ohio State because, again, this was a good team. Say all you want about the Buckeyes, whether they should have been here or not. What I saw against Clemson in that playoff semifinal out in the Sugar Bowl down in New Orleans, that showed me all I needed to see. You know, I was skeptical about Ohio State being in the playoffs, certainly as a 3 seed. They only played 6 games against a relatively weak Big Ten schedule. Struggled against Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game. Did they deserve to really be in the playoff above a Texas A&M? Even above a possible Oklahoma, who was getting hot at the right time. But when they dominated Clemson in that Sugar Bowl by 21 points against Trevor Lawrence and that Brent Venables-led defense, that showed me this was a worthy team. That was a worthy team. 100%. But again, they were going up against the Tide here. A team that, again, had won every single game by at least 15 points. 12 of the 13 games, I said, by at least 15 points. And, of course, had been held to no less than 31 points on the year. And say what you want about Ohio State again. If you're an Ohio State fan, I know what you're thinking, that, you know, the cards were stacked against you. Maybe the game should have been played. You know, they had so many COVID cases coming into Monday night that the game should have been postponed. That should not have happened. Justin Fields wasn't 100%. Maybe they should have made a better judgment call. Justin Fields, to me, looked fine for the most part. This Alabama defense did a pretty dang good job of containing him, though. One of the keys to our games for Alabama. Maybe Justin Fields wasn't 100%. Yes, Trey Sermon was knocked out early in the game. Obviously a huge blow to the Ohio State offense. Yes, they were missing their 2 kickers. Yes, they were missing some key defensive linemen. I can promise you that none of that played a factor in this game. I can promise you that none of that was going to make up for 28 points. It wasn't. It wasn't going to happen. Trey Sermon being in there in the backfield for the entire game would have given Ohio State a little bit more balance. Maybe would have given them a couple more touchdowns. Wouldn't have made up for 28 points. Having those key defensive linemen up front maybe would have created a little bit more pressure on Mac Jones, even though Ohio State did a pretty decent job of that, even forcing a fumble off of Mac Jones, I believe, in that second quarter. Maybe it would have helped a little bit, but it would not have made up for 28 points. The kickers certainly would not have made up for 28 points. I thought the special teams did just fine for Ohio State in this championship game. So, yes, there were cards stacked against the Buckeyes, but at the end of the day, that was not enough to me to justify saying, well, if they had been fully healthy, this game would have been completely different. It wouldn't have. Alabama's dominated from start to finish this year. And going into this game, I told myself the outcome of this game was going to go one of 2 ways. It was either going to be super close. It was either going to be super close one way or another, or Alabama was going to dominate. And we got the latter. And maybe that wasn't the way we wanted this season to end. Maybe we wanted to see a very exciting national championship game to conclude what has been such a wild college football season. And we almost had a chance for that to happen. You know, we got the latter. We got a blowout from Alabama. We almost had a close game, guys. You look at Ohio State, even with so many people out, they were only trailing 21-17 with 5 minutes remaining in the second quarter. They were in this game. The defense was playing well. They got a 3-and-out, or the offense went 3-and-out on their first drive. Alabama scored, but Ohio State marched right back. Every time you thought Alabama might break the game open, Ohio State found a way to keep it close. Ohio State found a way to keep it within striking distance, to keep it respectable. But I think when Ohio State was held to that field goal that made it 21-17, I think that's when we all knew the Buckeyes were in trouble. Because for the whole time, Ohio State had been keeping it within one possession. They were trading scores with Alabama. When they made it a 4-point game, we knew that one Alabama touchdown was going to make it a 2-possession game. And for many teams, a double-digit deficit to Alabama is too large to overcome. And that's exactly the case for Ohio State in this case. After trailing 21-17, Alabama scored 2 touchdowns in 3.5 minutes. 2 touchdowns in the final 3:30 of the second quarter, and they were up 35-17 at halftime. It was over at that point. It was over. Even when Ohio State cut it to 38-24, a little over halfway into the third quarter, it was over. Double-digit deficits against Alabama, against Nick Saban, you just don't overcome those. It just wasn't going to happen. And I will give so much credit to Alabama and their offense. The offense that has been the reason for their success this year. Steve Sarkisian, a phenomenal job now, off to Texas, riding off into the sunset with a national championship win under his belt, now going to be the head coach down in Austin. He deserves a lot of praise. Devontae Smith, Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Jalen Waddle even, for fighting through the pain and the injury to play a little bit in this national championship. They deserve a lot of praise. But you got to give some credit to this Alabama defense, guys. This Ohio State offense is good. Justin Fields is a top 15 NFL draft pick. Master Teague's a good running back. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, phenomenal wide receivers. And Alabama held them to 24 points. They didn't force any turnovers, but 24 points. It got stop after stop after stop. Created opportunities for their offense to rack up the points. The defense has been so overshadowed this year because of the amazing offensive success. We're going to give them credit now. Alabama defense deserves credit. We know Saban's a defensive-minded coach, and we saw that on display on Monday night. Again, guys, this may not have been the national championship we all wanted to see in terms of excitement, in terms of it being close, but this was a fitting way to me to end the 2020 college football season. Again, a college football season that was not supposed to happen, one that was filled with so much uncertainty. It ended with 2 blue blood programs going at it down in Miami, a stadium that under normal circumstances would be sold out and loud as all get out. Only had a couple thousand fans there. But 2 blue blood programs fighting it out. 2 great head coaches in Nick Saban and Ryan Day fighting it out. 2 great quarterbacks that will be first-round draft picks. So much NFL talent on both sides on this national championship stage. This was the way it needed to end. And Alabama ended up getting the job done. And I can't think of a more fitting way here, guys, for Nick Saban, the greatest head coach in the history of college football, in a year like this, to lead his Alabama team to an undefeated season. A year like this, an undefeated season, and in doing so, passes Bear Bryant, as we mentioned, to win his 7th national title, the most by any head coach in the poll era. You don't make this stuff up. It's a storybook ending for Alabama. A heartbreaking defeat for Ohio State, but again, they defied the odds too. They showed they deserved to be in this national championship. Again, yeah, they got blown out. I think anybody would have. Who played Alabama would have gotten blown out at this stage. They show they deserve to be here with their Sugar Bowl victory, and the Buckeyes will be back on this stage very, very soon. But for now, Alabama, rejoice. You are again national champions. You've won 50% of the national championships in the last 12 years. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But the dynasty, guys, is far from over. The dynasty is alive and well and will continue to be so as long as Nick Saban remains down in Tuscaloosa. So, guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert, our national championship recap, the end of the 2020 college football season. Can you believe it? Surreal. Goes by like that. But the off-season production here at the Gridiron Expert is already underway. Make sure to stay tuned on our channel. We have so much more content coming out for you over the following weeks and really over the following months until it's time to gear up prediction season again. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Check out everything down in the description below. Exclusive content on our website, thegridironexpert.com, to also get you through this off-season. Make sure to check that out and check out all our other offers and content down in the description. You do not want to miss out on any of that. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.